Hey Gearheads, and welcome to Garage Talk. I'm Corey, and that is the 2023 Mazda CX-30 crossover, the last of the Mazda model line for us to fully test here on the channel. This is basically a bigger version and a taller version of the Mazda 3 hatch that we really loved here on this channel, and even compared to some of the latest products from Audi. Is this taller version of that car just as good, or did it lose something in translation? In this video, I'm going to take you on a quick tour of this one. We're going to take it for a drive and see just how good this entry-level crossover from Mazda really is. Stay tuned. Before we get too far into this one, I do want to thank Mazda for delivering this CX-30 to us to test for a full week. Like I said, this is the last of their full model line for us to extensively test. We've done everything from the brand new CX-90 to the California, at least of now, California only MX-30 that shares a lot in common with this little crossover. We've seen everything from Mazda, and for the most part, we've absolutely loved everything that we've driven from them. I have a feeling this will be no exception to that rule. Coming in close, while I've got the hood up with the prop rod, brings me to my first nitpick of this vehicle. It's hot. It's July in Texas, and trying to lift a hood up is hot enough as it is because, well, you've got a lot of explosions happening thanks to this 2.5 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder under the hood. But even if you haven't been driving this recently, this beautiful dark blue paint also makes the hood very hot. Anyway, all that to say, trying to get this hood open without burning my hands was a chore and a task that I don't relish. So this is the one and only time I will be opening it for this video, and probably the last time I will open the hood while I've got it. But like I said, underneath this very hot and hard to open without burning yourself hood, you get the same powertrain that we've seen in practically every single Mazda that we've tested outside of that MX-30 all-electric and that new CX-90. Here in this Premium Plus model, we do have the turbocharged version. It's 2.5 liters, makes 227 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque on regular gas. Put the good stuff in, and you get 250 horsepower and 320 pound-feet of torque. You absolutely feel it. This thing is a peppy little vehicle. This one does come with a Skyactiv 6-speed automatic, which is a little archaic by 2023 standards, and it does get the i-Activ all-wheel drive, so it does put the power down to all 4 wheels, making this a very fun vehicle for all climates. Closing the hood, don't worry, I didn't burn myself closing it either, but you can really appreciate the style of this CX-30. Mazda really is going with a nesting doll approach to their vehicles, especially with this CX-30 and the Mazda 3. This really is just a taller version of that hatchback. Something tells me, though, the few major changes in design around to the back as we get back there will be more favorable to Holly when we get to our family review later this week. We'll just have to stick around and see if that's true. Be sure and hit subscribe so you don't miss that when it comes out. But moving down and looking at the overall design of it, very familiar Mazda face on this one. You get the radar adaptive cruise sensors behind that Mazda logo in the grille. You get radar parking sensors. You get LED headlights and turn signals, and the headlights are actually adaptive headlights. So yes, here in the sub $40,000 compact crossover, subcompact crossover, you actually get adaptive headlights, which really come in handy at night. They turn with the steering wheel and help illuminate the path wherever you are going. You can also see below the grille, you have active arrow shutters that help with fuel economy. Underneath the pulsating LED turn signals, you also have a little bit of an air curtain that feeds air around the front of the vehicle and dumps it out in the wheel well. So that's an interesting touch there. I will mention these turn signals, they are pulsating, and that is something we've seen on the CX-50 and also on the MX-30 electric crossover. These pulsating slim LED turn signals. It's an interesting look for sure, and the pulsation of them is even carried over to the rearview mirrors there and in the back and on the interior. And coming around to the side, because this is an SUV, it gets the SUV requisite black plastic lower cladding on this, which shows ruggedness and athleticism. So yes, this does get some black, which is a little hard to see with this deep blue metallic paint, but I hope it comes across well enough on camera, just the contrast. If you remember to our white Mazda 3 hatch, it was more of a sports sedan, sport hatch, so it was not looking to go rugged. It wanted to be like a racer, so we got painted black accents on that one, including that black wing in the back. Speaking of black accents, we have black 18-inch wheels here, wrapped in Bridgestone Turanza tires. And let's see if I can actually find the size on these. They are 215/55 R18 Bridgestone Turanza tires. And you can see we've got disc brakes back behind them, both front and rear. So four-wheel disc brakes helping bring you to a stop on this one. Coming around to the profile of this, I've seen there's a meme going around out there. It's got the right vehicle, but the wrong name. There's a joke that the new Ferrari SUV looks almost exactly like this from a profile perspective, but they say the MX-30. The MX-30, again, is that all-electric crossover from Mazda. So is this a budget-friendly or a affordable Ferrari? Well, if you like the profile styling of this one, go for it. As we come around to the back, looking back here at the very back end, this is the biggest difference between this and that Mazda 3 hatch. So Holly described the back end of that Mazda 3 hatch as a droopy diaper butt. Didn't help that it was in that pearl white paint either. But here we get a much more angular look, much more SUV-like look. It is definitely a taller vehicle overall, and you can tell that it is more of an SUV. But we get the CX-30 badge there on the left, Skyactiv Turbo badge there on the right to let everyone know you got the fast one. And then we got those dual exit exhausts out back. I really like that. And then again, that requisite black plastic bumper because it is a crossover. Again, we get those pulsating turn signals back here. The flashing, believe me, is due to the camera. It is just a solid pulse here in real life. Opening the power hatch on this one, you can see we've got a fair amount of cargo space. I do believe it's 20.2 cubic feet of cargo space, which is 0.1 cubic feet more than that Mazda 3 hatch, but it is up taller. The vehicle itself is up taller, so it should be easier to load and unload versus that lower Mazda 3 hatch. But all that to say, essentially, it is the same cargo compartment as what you find in that hatchback. You can see there's my backpack for reference. It's fairly deep, fairly tall. We do have a little bit of a rake to that back window here, so getting anything above this line right here might be a little bit of a problem, but loading luggage in shouldn't be too difficult. And then we do have a false load floor here with our spare tire underneath. Inside, Mazda saved some space. That's where the subwoofer is for the Bose sound system. We'll go ahead and call out while I am back here though, there are top tethers all the way across for all three seats on the child seats here for the top tether, though we'll talk more about lower latches when we get in. This is a power hatch. I'll go ahead and show you. I'm 5'10". This is how wide it opens, so just above my head, I would say just at 6 feet for its full open, but you can see right above my head, that's where the buttons are to open and close it. So if you are a little bit vertically challenged, that is something that could be a problem, but I think it's fairly easy. My 5-foot wife hasn't had too much of a problem. And I can say in our 1963 built garage that it opens just perfectly, that we don't have to worry about hitting anything. All right, before we get in this one, I did want to show you the Mazda key. Typical Mazda key, nothing too special about it. All the buttons are here on the side. You get lock, unlock, your hatch release, and a panic button. And you can actually deploy a physical key out of the bottom of it if you need to, but it is a proximity key, so you can keep it in your pocket or your purse and just walk up to the vehicle. Well, note, to unlock it, you put your hand on the back of the front door. To lock it, you can push that little square right there. It is only on the front doors, not on the back doors, so if you've got a loaded kid in the back, you're going to be reaching and touching the front door first. But opening the door, you can see exactly why it is that we love Mazda products so much. The interior is just so premium. It's why we prefer them over some of the Audis that we've received lately, and we've had several of both. The Mazda interiors just really impress us each and every time. This is very similar, near identical to that Mazda 3 hatch that we had, though that one being a sporty hot hatch had a red interior, red and black interior. This being your family SUV is cream and brown. Other than that, it just feels like a taller version of that. The seat sits up off the floor versus sitting directly on the floor, but everything else feels nearly identical. Coming to the doors before we get in, nice use of colors and textures here. We've got browns and blacks and stitching and some metallic look, but all around a very nice look, very interesting in its use of textures and colors. It's not just a sea of black in this vehicle. You can see all your window controls here, as well as your lock and unlock. And yes, we do have the Bose sound system in this. You can see down here we have multi-position driver's seat with lumbar. But let's go ahead and get in this one and fire it up, because it is a warm July day that I'm melting out there, y'all. Firing it up, the gauge cluster, everything just feels very familiar. The dash is identical to that Mazda 3 that we had, just a different color. We'll actually start over my left knee and work our way across. So over here, we've got our safety system, our camera button, our park sense, and our hill descent control. So again, this being an SUV, you're probably going to be taking it off-road, maybe on a camping trip. Down below that, we have our hatch button, our two-person memory seat for the driver's seat, and your set button right there. Here are all your light controls on this side, your wiper controls with automatic wipers on that side. Very familiar Mazda steering wheel, just like every other Mazda product we've been in. Not button overload on it. Very nice, very simple to get in and use. You can see we have a nice mix of analog and digital gauges here. That entire center section is a digital gauge. And you can actually scroll through different information screens here, but you can actually get it to mimic a real gauge, so I like it very much. That fuel reading, the average economy of 16. I reset it recently. I haven't driven this all that much while we've had it, because again, it feels very much like that Mazda 3 hatch that we had not that long ago. It is a very familiar experience, but yes, we're getting better than that 16. The window stickers on both say this only takes a 1 mpg hit versus the Mazda 3 hatch, and like I said, I haven't really gotten enough drive time in this one outside of sitting and filming today, which absolutely destroys the fuel economy. You might want to check back for our family review. Hopefully we have a better assessment of the fuel economy there. You can see it is a rather sporty interior with a very driver-centric focus because, well, it's Mazda. Zoom, zoom, right? So I've got two vents here pointed directly at me. I do have a head-up display that tells me the vehicle speed, the posted speed. It has traffic sign recognition, so it'll put the posted speed up there as well as whether or not we're coming up to a stop sign. A lot of people complain about Mazda infotainment. It is not my personal favorite, but if you've been in a Mazda product, you know exactly what you're getting here. This is not a touchscreen, at least not right now. You have to control everything with this knob right here. It does come with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but you have to plug in via USB-A here in the center console. So there is that. And yeah, if you don't like the controller, perhaps this one isn't for you, but it is also far enough away that it really isn't convenient to be a touchscreen either. Coming down here, same climate controls that are in every single Mazda I think that we've been in. They are dual zone automatic climate controls. Works really well, but like I've noted in practically every Mazda we've been in, if you put it in auto, it really prefers that fan speed. So it is really gonna blast you out when it comes on. So I've found myself not using automatic mode all that much outside of getting in and wanting to cool off rather quickly. Because of this dial control here, the cup holders are in a weird space. You can fit a tall Whataburger drink here or Sonic drink, whatever the case may be, but then you completely obliterate the use of the storage space back here at the back. It isn't a Qi wireless charger, at least in this model, which I'm not a big fan of most wireless chargers in vehicles, so that's not a big loss to me. I bet if we lived with this vehicle, I would find more to complain with this entire section, but I typically don't bring a whole lot of stuff that I'm needing to store in small places like that. But it is an odd arrangement of things just because of where the cups are, especially for big American drinks. Glove box is damped, but is not felt lined. It actually has a tray inside that stays stationary, so you can actually get quite a bit of stuff in there. I'm really impressed. And then the center console here, you might have noticed it. It's a very interesting one. To open it, you slide it back first, and then it tips back, and there you can see we've got some USB ports in here. We've got this movable divider here. That's actually where I am currently storing the lower latch covers for our rear child seat. Again, all your infotainment controls are right here, including your volume. I do like that these are quick and easy to the touch, and there are a few quick access buttons here. Overall, it's not as bad as all the other journalists I know that cover this make it out to be. It's also not my personal favorite. I mentioned earlier, we do have a 6-speed automatic transmission. It is actually a mechanical used Prindle here, I will say, but I like that it's not like some rotary dial or anything like that. You put it in reverse, you do get 360 cameras with bird's eye and your trajectory back behind you. If you want to see up in front of you, I can hit the camera button, and there is up in front with trajectory as well. So I really like that. That's a nice touch. You do get home link controls here on the rear view mirror. Your airbag lights are up here. You do get a little bit of sunglass storage. Standard sized sunroof right here with a manual shade. So nothing just overly fancy in here when it comes to glass roofs or anything like that. Seats are very nice. They are comfortable. They're heated only, even though they are perforated. No ventilation here in this model. They're very comfortable, very supportive. Like I said, they do sit up off the floor a little bit, so I'm not directly on the floor like I was in the Mazda 3. It's a much more chair-like seating position here in the CX-30. I'm pretty close to the headliner, especially with the sunroof. This is a manual tilt and telescoping steering wheel, but the seat I already showed you is two-position memory power seat. So all around, very nice here. Let's hop in the back and see what it's like riding behind myself at 5'10". All right, coming up to this one, before we get in, I will remind you this is in the subcompact class, so it is going to be a tight back seat. It is smaller than the popular CX-5, but here we go, climbing in behind myself at 5'10", closing the door. Yes, my knees are touching the back of the seat in front of me, even with this cutout. So it is a tight interior, especially for backseat occupants. But again, this is in the subcompact class. It is on par with many vehicles in this size class. One advantage the backseat gets to the Mazda 3 hatch is you actually get air vents on the back of the center console. Mazda 3 hatch did not have this. The lid also opened differently in the Mazda 3 hatch. So this center console situation is a lot better, especially for backseat passengers. And over here, I will show you, we do have a mat pocket behind the passenger seat. If you want to see what it's like installing Tucker's child safety seat, be sure and hit that subscribe button so you can see what it's like. We do that on our full family review, which will be coming out later. We do have a fold down center armrest with 2 cup holders in the back, and the center seat belt is actually in the seat, not in the ceiling. So when you fold these 60-40 split bench seats down, you don't have any obstruction from a seatbelt coming out of the ceiling. Headroom is actually a little bit better back here because I can get behind the hump for the sunroof up front. So I actually have more headroom back here in the back, but I'm trying to reach back here and show you there is no actual recline to these seats. So where I'm at is where I'm at. It is a little more on the upright side, but I can find a pretty good sitting position. I've just got to man spread a little to get around the seat in front of me. Otherwise, it's a fairly comfortable back seat. I could only really see 2 people riding back here. 3 would be just a bit too much. But that's enough of the seat comfort and the interior. Let's actually get behind the steering wheel and see how this thing drives. Hopping in, putting it in drive, and setting off in the 2023 Mazda CX-30 2.5 turbo premium plus all-wheel drive. Long name. Make sure we get all the qualifications in there. Again, this is a little old school. We have a 6-speed automatic. A lot of old school stuff in this, but when it translates to on-road drivability, I'm just going to do a rolling start here. Not too bad. I'm already up to 50. It's a plenty quick vehicle for day in and day out living, and makes for a fun grocery getter, which I believe is what most people are going to be buying these for. I don't think you're buying this because it's an SUV and you want to go off-road, even though we've got that downhill descent control, things like that. You do have more ground clearance than we did in that Mazda 3 hatch. This one is easier to get up our 13-degree incline driveway, things like that. This one would be easier to live with day in and day out, and maybe the one we would end up getting, but I really liked that hatch a little bit better. I will say this has 2 driving modes, sport and off, which that was in off. Let's put it in sport as we come to this stop and come around the corner here. Let's see. Okay, we got a little. It's quick, it's fun, it's not groundbreaking in its performance by any means, but again, over 250 horsepower, 320 pound-feet of torque if you put the right fuel in, powering all 4 wheels. Again, little archaic 6-speed automatic. You can flop it over into manual mode. We do have paddles on the back of the steering wheel right here, but I've said it before on this channel, I drive a 6-speed manual daily. I want to see what engineers have done with automatic transmissions to see if they've tuned them right, how they keep them in the power band. This one does a fairly good job of delivering power when you want it. We're just cruising right now. Let's stab it. I mean, it's pretty quick to respond and take you off the line. So I'll give this one a pass in a gear crazy economy that we're in now, where we're seeing 8, 9, 10 gears in automatic transmissions. It's just really getting crazy as of late how many gears some manufacturers are putting in their transmissions. The ride in this one, I've brought many a vehicle down this very heavily textured pavement, and there have been some vehicles, that Toyota GR86 for instance, where the road noise just reverberates inside the cabin. There are other vehicles like the Mercedes AMG GLE 53 Coupe, where it is very insulated and isolated from the exterior noise in here. I would say this is somewhere in between those for sure. It is not overly loud in here. I cannot stress to you how heavily textured this pavement is, but how well this vehicle is keeping all that road noise out. It may be picking it up here on camera just due to the way microphones work, but I will say it is very easy to have a conversation in here, where other vehicles that I've brought down here, that has not been the case. I was very pleased with that Mazda 3 hatch and how it performed. This being a taller version of essentially that same vehicle, you do realize it is taller. It's not as down and planted on the road, and you can see how it handled bumps there just a second ago, kind of bouncing me around a little. Again, I am in sport mode, but overall it is a completely fine vehicle for what 99% of its intended buyers are going to be using it for. I don't know how many owners of CX-30 crossovers are going to be carving canyon roads in their newest Mazda, but knowing that this is a brand that has built its reputation on zoom and driving fun, it's good to know that it hasn't lost that here in the CX-30. Is this the most performance driver-oriented Mazda? No. Is it the most driver-oriented compact crossover? No. There are definitely others that you can shop for and that you can buy. I referenced Audi earlier. We've had the Audi A4 sedan, but we have not had the Q3 SUV in which this would compete with. That thing starts at $37,000 and has essentially the same power numbers as this Mazda. This one maxed out is right there with it, so you can have a maxed out Mazda or an entry-level Audi. And I can tell you just from the Audis that we've been in and every Mazda that we've had now, that Mazda's attention to detail when it comes to the interior is top-notch. I have not been disappointed with especially any of their interiors. Even that Mazda MX-30 that was very odd and quirky and cork-y had a very unique interior that I definitely appreciated how Mazda went about it. The unique use of materials and textures in there. It was all around a very fun vehicle in its own right. Even if its 100 miles of range kind of left you scratching your head, it is a California compliance vehicle anyway. But driving this one around, there is body roll, yes. It is a taller version of that Mazda 3 hatch, but it is still a very fun vehicle to drive, to experience, and it does have that zoom nature. I'm very interested to see what Holly thinks of it, especially compared to the droopy diaper butt of that white Mazda 3 hatch. But when comparing in my memory, in my mind, to some of the Audi products that we've had, I would absolutely pick this over a comparable Audi any day. This really is a good, solid product. It's so well built and quiet in here. I don't hear creaks or rattles. It feels 100% solid and buttoned down. Very well put together. I've had it described to me that Mazda is the Japanese Volvo, and ever since I heard that, I have not been able to get it out of my mind. It's a one-off brand that isn't tied directly to any one company. Yes, they are working in partnership with Toyota, but they stand on their own. They aren't owned by anybody, and they are quickly working their way up the premium ladder. That CX-90 that we tested in San Francisco was top-notch, and we really like the direction the brand is headed. I have it on good authority from conversations on that trip that the entire brand is working to move upscale. So when it comes to this vehicle right here, the CX-30 is the second most affordable, easiest to get into vehicle in their lineup at just $400 more than a base model Mazda 3 sedan. This actual model right here is actually a few dollars cheaper than that Mazda 3 hatch that we had earlier this year. So really, this is a spectacular bargain. You get the same powertrain, you get slightly more storage in the rear, and you get an SUV shape that everyone loves, including Ferrari apparently, because they ripped it off, in a package that is, well, relatively fun to drive thanks to its torquey engine and all-wheel drive. If you want to see more from us, more thoughts on what we're driving, find us on all social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, even the new threads, all at GT Garage Talk. You can go to gtgaragetalk.com to read more about this vehicle, see pictures of it, see the window sticker, how it all prices out, things I can't remember off the top of my head while driving. Be sure and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our family review when it drops later this week. But as for me, until next time, gearheads, bye. Of course that went outside. decided it was going to look at the ground. You're not doing me any good back there looking at the ground. Here comes the air conditioning.